Hey folks, this clip is brought to you by Farm Bureau Health Plans. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ. That is Farm Bureau Health Plans. Mike Griffith goes on this show. I don't have the actual audio clip of it, but he's asked, who would you have more faith in? And I guess we should say Griffith is now a reporter for Georgia. He's a Georgia reporter, although I want to say he's a Tennessee graduate, I think.
I
Anywho,
have
I don't
no
know.
idea. I think he's from like Michigan or something,
Is
isn't
he?
he?
I
I feel
don't
like
know.
that's the case.
I don't know the full background there, but he has long ties to Tennessee. I would put it that way. He was a
Yeah.
reporter for a really long time in Knoxville. But he now reports for Georgia, and he is asked, who would you have more faith in right now, Shane Beamer or Josh Heupel? Like, who would you choose long-term success? Who we going with? And he just glowed about Josh Heupel and Tennessee. And specifically, a lot of people grabbed onto the fact that he said Tennessee is a sleeping giant. And I would say I don't love Mike Griffith's takes pretty much all of the time. But this one I could deal with. I think he pretty much hit the nail on the head. What did you think when you heard this, Zach?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because he hasn't said a lot of super positive things. About Josh Heupel. I guess it hasn't really been necessarily negative, but he was a Butch Jones guy. He's grown close to Jeremy Pruitt, who he had on weekly this past fall to discuss, various college football things on his YouTube show. Pruitt, obviously a former Georgia assistant that, between him and Butch, those were his two guys. So he's kind of tried to give more credit to those guys than maybe Heupel at times. So I was a little bit surprised, but he's right. And you could say that we're biased. I'm sure we are to some extent, but you see what's happening at South Carolina. It just doesn't seem sustainable. Shane Beamer's not Butch Jones necessarily, but the whole way that he's building that thing feels Butch Jones-ish. He's kind of relying on some clever marketing, some of the same things Butch did with the media, social media team and stuff at Tennessee, and some of the different things that he kind of put out there. Whereas Josh Heupel, he'll go on and do radio interviews and he'll say what he thinks, and he has a good time with the host, and he'll make some jokes, and he'll pretty strongly talk about his offense and seen for fight at the when he has to, but nothing too over the top. He's not replying to random fans on Twitter like Shane Beamer does at times. He's not filming these crazy videos to go viral or calling out reporters in the middle of press conferences. Well, except Heupel did kind of do that to Mike Griffith one time when Griffith wore a red jacket to the media press conference before the Georgia game this past season, which is one of the funnier moments of the season if you want to go back and relive that. But it does feel more sustainable the way Josh Heupel's building it than what Shane Beamer's doing down there. And Beamer, outside of that Tennessee game, and then they got past Clemson, they weren't that impressive last season. They had some real stinkers. And we've theorized that the reason that they kind of came on strong late is because they handed the offense over to Freddie Kitchens, let him make the calls instead of the offensive coordinator that had to went to Nebraska. I can't remember his name. That guy was coming heavy under fire from the fans, did not like him, wanted him fired. You let Freddie Kitchens call these last couple of games. It was a completely different offensive plan. Nobody was prepared for it. Tennessee had no idea what South Carolina was running. It was as bad as they looked defensively all season. They boat raced South Carolina 2021 in Neyland. Who knows how it goes in 2023. It just feels like they're hyping South Carolina up a little too fast at this point. It doesn't seem like, they're not a national championship contender. I don't think Spencer Rattler is going to go out there and lead them to 12 wins next season. I don't see that as a possibility. I think they're going to lose some games that they shouldn't lose in 2023. Maybe they win some that they shouldn't win too. I don't know, but it doesn't feel like that's going anywhere. It feels a lot like what Butch Jones did. He got to 9 wins a couple times with Tennessee and then fizzled out. Beamer's personality, he's so volatile that it just seems like at any point that could just all fall apart. He's just he has that very thin skin mentality that Butch Jones had. We've seen it in some of his interviews. When he's talking about which SEC coach he could beat in a fight on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and he's serious. Like, he's going through the list, like locked in, like, I could take this guy. I'm in good shape. I could outrun this guy. Like, it's just a podcast, man. It's just having fun. It's just a funny conversation, and he's really, going inside the numbers on it. So, yeah, I think Griffith's right, and for him to say something positive like that about Josh Heupel in Tennessee must tell you that hey, it really is correct.
Yeah, I actually, Mr. Jones, one of our great regular commenters here, he kind of beat me to what I was going to say. I think the main thing that I disagree with Griffith on is that Tennessee isn't a sleeping giant. It's an awake giant. I mean, Tennessee has sold, I think they beat their season ticket selling goal by 3 years, according to the reports around that situation. 70,000+ sold season tickets. Somebody said on a message board they had sold 100,000 or something. Did you tell me that? I don't know. Don't say anything if it was behind a paywall or something. But anywho, which would be insane. I mean, that seems. I don't know if that's even possible, but I think so.
Yeah, I don't think they sell that many season tickets.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. But I don't know. Somebody in the comments might know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I know that they were way, way, way ahead of schedule there. Farm Bureau Health Plans has been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years, and much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200+ locations across the state of Tennessee. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. You saw what happened this season. Overall, there's nothing sleeping about this. You went 11-2. You were a loss away from the college football playoff. Nobody's asleep. South Carolina beat the team that was a win away from the college football playoff. That's all South Carolina did. And I think the main thing that I look at when I look at Beamer is I just see so much of what I've seen before here at Tennessee. You see a guy who he's having relative success. He absolutely is. But when you get to the actual offseason and you look back at the results, South Carolina fans aren't looking and going like, oh man, what an amazing season. I can't believe it. We're going to go and everything's on the way up. We're going exactly where we want to go in this train. It's a train that's headed right up the mountain. Nobody's saying that. The conversation is, you guys think this is going to work out long term? And when we had that conversation was with Butch Jones. I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, Zach. We've had that conversation plenty of times here where we went, yeah, he won 9 games, but you sort of put quotes around one. He won 9 games. Yes, that happened. Or however, what was it, 8, I guess, for South Carolina. Or was it? Yeah, because they lost their bowl game. I think it was 8 this season.
Yeah, they're 8-5.
Yeah, and he won 8 games. Relatively speaking, hey, that's nice. You went from absolute garbage to 8 wins so far. But you look at Beamer and the way that he's doing all of that there, and you just go, there's something off here. There's just something, it just doesn't, it's not translating. And if they had, think of the difference in the narrative at all, in totality around Beamer, if he had lost to Tennessee or Clemson, either or. I think specifically losing to Tennessee just because it was so shocking the way that they did it. I mean, you could have that miracle win over Clemson. Tennessee went a few weeks later and beat the snot out of them. I think clearly Clemson just wasn't that great of a football team. But, I mean, the way they beat Tennessee, you take that away. What is the narrative around South Carolina football right now? 7 wins. They're getting absolutely lapped by Tennessee, who people really want to compare them to, even though they're not really comparable as programs. But, there's just, you look at those situations and it's Butchie. Every Tennessee fan is going to say that. We all know why, because we were all there during the Butch years. We all just know that feeling. We all know because we were all there. We all understand.
It's like he's trying to prove that he belongs in the SEC as a head coach.
Yeah.
Same thing that Butch did. Yeah, we've seen it before. The thing that strikes me is that the narrative around Tennessee from opposing fan bases is 11-2. That loss by 25 points to South Carolina. That's always the caveat that other fan bases bring up. It seems that South Carolina fans completely forget that they got blown out by a really bad Florida team. Like they lost by over 30 points to a bad Florida team. They lost to a really bad Missouri team. Or not really bad, but they were 6-6, I think, last
They
season.
were pretty bad.
Not a very good Missouri team. You lost to Arkansas. You got blown out by Georgia. I don't hold that against you, but there were some losses there that they seemed to overlook, like they didn't really happen. Especially that loss to Florida. I think you can't lose by 32 points to Florida and then think that beating Tennessee by 25 points is like that never happened. I don't see that logic in that. It doesn't make any sense to me that it gets brought up about Tennessee but not South Carolina. And who says that? If you're going to say, okay, that's not who South Carolina is, they righted the ship, and this is who they are now, the team that beat Tennessee by 25 points, the team that squeaked by a mediocre Clemson team, maybe lost in your bowl game. Well, then that's got to be the same thing for Tennessee, because they rebounded from that South Carolina loss, blew out Vanderbilt, who was fighting for bowl eligibility with their backup quarterback. They did what they were supposed to do against Vanderbilt. I'm not going to say that Tennessee fans should celebrate that win like it was a massive win. They did what they should have done that night in not great weather conditions, and they went and handled business against Clemson with that same backup quarterback who will be their starter this year, and Joe Milton. They righted the ship too then, if that's what South Carolina wants to go with.
Yeah. I feel like it should be more concerning for SEC programs that Joe Milton was the guy that quote unquote like righted the ship there. Like he's going to be the starter. Now South Carolina, still they have the Radler kid. He's going to be their starter this year too. Fine. But that he's not getting the respect he deserves. But that's a conversation for a little bit later in the offseason, a whole different can of worms there.
Did you, to real touch on that real quick, just something that I noticed during the draft. Did you catch when Mel Kiper was talking about Hendon Hooker, and one of the ways he dismissed Hendon Hooker was because Joe Milton played so well against Clemson? Like, what a just slap in the face of Milton. Well, Milton played this well, so Hooker can't be that good. It has to be the offense.
God, Mel Kiper is just the worst, man. He was so
wrong.
I
don't know how he has that job at all.
He was so wrong about Levis. They had that graphic up on the thing during the entire first round that was like Mel Kiper's top on the board, and it was Will Levis the entire time, and he went the entire night without getting drafted. God, Kiper's a clown. That's so annoying. But to wrap that up, just on the whole, Griffith incredibly, I'll say it again. He's not somebody I agree with basically ever, but he pretty much nailed it right on the head there in that what he was saying about Tennessee. And I think just long term, you stack everything up side by side, and I just think this is better for Tennessee. But time will tell. We'll find out this season. South Carolina has to come to Knoxville in a where Tennessee is playing for revenge, and may God have mercy on their soul. I'll put it that way.